Welcome back to the Synergistic Edge. It's your host, Alvey Thompson. And again, this is the place where high performers can win everywhere. And it's a beautiful Sunday here in Brighton, Michigan. I got my coffee, I got my notes, and really excited to talk about today's topic, which is the Synergistic Method. And the Synergistic Method is literally my answer that I came up with over my last 13 years of being in the health, wellness, performance, fitness field to the hidden cost of success that I talked about last episode. And what I found through my clients and through honestly hundreds of conversations that I've had with men and women just like you is that so many of you are operating at 50 to 60% capacity and think it's normal. And again, I'm not saying that to put you down in any type of way, but simply to create awareness to help you see that there is so much meat left on the bone, and that can be a really exciting thing. But in order to take advantage of all of that, it takes having a system of health that truly works for your real life. I talked about in the last episode how so much of the problems that are out there that come with success. When you are really good at your work, that means you're typically given more work to do. And we live in a society where success is truly defined by the way that we're climbing in our career, the impact that we're making at work. But unfortunately, it is coming at the expense of our health and our relationships. So what I've done over these last 14 years is create the Synergistic Method. And the reason why I call it the Synergistic Method is because we get to understand what the word synergy means. And simply stated, when something is synergistic, that means that the sum of the individual parts together is greater than those individual parts by themselves. Synergy simply means the individual parts working together create a greater whole. And one of the problems that I've seen in the fitness industry is that so many things are put in their own little individual compartments. You have people telling you, hey, this is the way you need to think about exercise. You have other people saying, hey, this is the way you need to think about nutrition. You have other people saying, hey, this is how you need to sleep. But there's not too many systems out there that are showing you how they all work together. And that's what's one of the biggest secrets of being a high performer. So my goal here is to show you how all these different parts can work together to create a better you. A you that has more energy, that has more capacity physically, mentally, emotionally, and understanding that your health is actually your secret weapon in even performing better at work. And one of the big problems that I find is because you are so busy, you have so many things on your plate, whether at work or at home, the responsibilities are so great that usually you don't have the time to go and research all of the thousands of things online telling you how you should eat, telling you how you should train, how you should recover, how you should sleep, all of it. And what's confusing is there's so much information out there that contradicts each other. So you really have to learn how to actually navigate this. And I'll be the first one to tell you, it's not about there being one perfect diet for everybody or one perfect training system for everybody, but it's understanding what is the best thing that works for you. And that's what we're going to talk about here with the Synergistic Method. My Synergistic Method has four main parts to it. The first one is the dynamic identity. The second one is biological fueling. The third one is the athletic advantage. And the fourth one is the regeneration protocol. And all of these working together is what allows executives, lawyers, entrepreneurs, founders, high achievers, leaders just like you be able to optimize your performance in the workplace and at home. So let's take a second to dive into each one. And I want to give you some tangible ways that you can use these today, how you can start to incorporate it today. Because at the end of the day, I talked a little bit about this last episode, but it's not about having knowledge. You have plenty of knowledge. It's about having wisdom. And wisdom is simply practicing the knowledge that you have. So I'm going to share you a little knowledge, and hopefully you'll be able to turn it into wisdom by putting it into action ASAP. So the first pillar is the dynamic identity. So there's two main words in there. There's dynamic and there's identity. So dynamic, that means it's something that is constantly growing, constantly evolving, constantly adapting. And then identity is how we see ourselves, who we are, How do we identify ourselves? So when I talk about the dynamic identity, it's really working with my clients to understand, hey, who you are is not just your career. You are not just a lawyer. You are not just an executive. But in our Western society, that's how many of us are conditioned to describe ourselves. When I don't know if you've ever had this happen. I know I've had it many a times. But the first thing most people, 9 out of 10 times, they'll ask me when we first meet is, oh, so like, what do you do for a living? They ask what my job is. And does that happen with you? People are asking you about your job, not because they really care about what your job is. I don't think that's what it is, but that's just the most common way or the first question that we typically ask, just because, again, it's the way it's been for so long. But because of that, and because of thinking like that, it's the reason why so many of us identify with just our career. But when I think about myself, I'm more than just a coach. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a child of God. There's many different aspects that make me who I am. But when I understand that my identity is dynamic, I understand that the person I am, who I'm being, that's what dictates what I actually do, instead of letting what I do dictate who I am. Does that make sense? So there's this concept out there called be, do, have. And I want to share that with you because I think it's very tangible here. So when we think about be, do, have, most of us usually have it backwards. It's usually do, have, be. Meaning, when I do this specific thing, then I'll have X amount of money and then I'll be happy. It's one of these things when we're thinking about our doingness or how we show up or how we perform being the first thing that decides the type of stuff we have. And then the stuff we have dictates who I am or how I see myself. So, for example, coming up through school, if I get good grades, if I go to a great college, once I go and I graduate from law school, and then I take the bar exam, and then I become a lawyer, then I'm going to do law, I'm going to have money, and then I'll be happy or I'll be fulfilled. But understand that our doingness is actually a result of our beingness. And the reason why so many of you can easily show up for your work and do all the things that need to be done from a career perspective is because you might see your beingness as your job, as your career. But imagine if your beingness was deeper than that. Imagine if you had a dynamic identity when you identified as a healthy person. And now because you identify as a healthy person, you do healthy things. You show up to the gym. You pack your lunch when you go to work. You eat a certain way. So it's understanding the dynamic identity is all about how you see yourself. And if you don't see yourself in a specific way, you're not going to do the actions that that identity would require, which means you're not going to have the result that you're looking for. So when it pertains to health, one of the biggest problems I see is people will say, oh, I'm trying to go to the gym. I'm trying to exercise. I'm trying to eat healthy. But think about that. You're trying because you're looking at it as something that you're looking to do. But if it's who you are, you simply get it done. There's literally no such thing as trying, right? It's like the old Yoda quote. There is no try. You either do or do not. It's all about execution. It's all about, are you showing up for the specific thing? So when it comes to this dynamic identity, and as it pertains to your health and your well-being and your performance and your family and all the things that truly matter, it requires you to start seeing yourself as the person who simply does healthy things. Because I look at myself as a dynamic man, health is a huge principle of mine, it's a huge value of mine. Therefore, I make sure that I train 3 to 4 times a week. Therefore, I make sure that I eat real food. Therefore, I make sure I prioritize my sleep and I get in bed by 10:30. These are things that I do as a result of who I am. It's not that I'm going to wait for all of these things to just magically happen, have the weight loss, have the better skin, have the better energy, and then I'm going to be the person. No, it starts with being the person first. And all of that's to say, and what my challenge to you would be is reflect on How do you see yourself? How do you describe yourself? Who are you? And once you see who you are and how you describe yourself, now start to look at the consistent actions that you take. What are the consistent things that you do? And can you see how they probably align? If you see yourself as a powerful VP, that's probably why you take all the actions for your job. But if you don't have anywhere in your identity, there's no room in there for being a healthy, vibrant, vital man or woman, then it's really easy to see why you might not be making it to the gym as consistently as you want it to be, why you're not making time to manage your stress, why you're not taking the extra time to go eat a better meal or prepare a better meal or to buy a better meal. All of this starts with your identity and how you see yourself. And that's why the dynamic identity is the first pillar and the most important pillar in the synergistic method. Because without this, these next three are not going to happen consistently or at a high level. So pillar number 2, biological fueling. This is my view of nutrition. If we think about what food is intended to do, it's intended to fuel our body, our mind, our spirit to be able to perform at a high level in life. And something that I've found is that a lot of people that I've come into contact with who aren't doing, quote unquote, the right things when it pertains to their nutrition is because they're so confused that they just say, forget it. They might be on social media, scrolling, following whatever influencer or doctor or whoever it may be. And one person's telling them that meat is terrible for them. The next person's telling them that meat is the best thing for them, but that vegetables are terrible. And then the next person's telling them, hey, you shouldn't eat vegetables or meat. You got to be a fruitarian. So I could see easily why one would just throw their hands up and be like, whatever, I'm just going to go eat whatever food. But I want you to understand there's very specific principles when it comes to our nutrition and our food. And the simplest way I want to talk about it with you is that what you put into your body dictates what you get out of it. It's kind of like having your favorite vehicle. But for this example, we're not using any electric vehicles. We're not using Teslas, but your favorite gas-powered vehicle. Say your favorite car, your dream car is a Lamborghini. What type of fuel are you putting in that Lamborghini? You're putting in the premium gas. What happens if you put regular unleaded gas in a Lamborghini? It'll work for a little bit, but then it's going to break the machine because the quality of that gas is not good enough for the vehicle that it's going in, this high performance vehicle. Your body is the same exact way. You are that Lamborghini, and you need to be putting in premium gas to make sure that that Lamborghini can function as a Lamborghini does. And what does that premium gas look like? Number one, high quality, nutrient dense, pastured animal products. So this is your grass-fed beef, your pasture-raised chicken, your wild-caught fish, your full-fat organic A2 milk. All of these things are extremely important for the body. And when it comes to animal products, some people are going to tell you, hey, you shouldn't eat them. And I'm not here to argue. If you're someone that says, hey, I don't eat animals for moral reasons, then that's you, right? You're allowed to, I get it if that's how you feel about that. But to say it's not good for your body is a different statement. And there's so much science out there that has shown that good quality red meat is not bad for us. It doesn't lead to heart attack, right? It doesn't, eating amounts of good quality grass-fed butter is not going to kill you. But it's understanding that if you are going to eat animal products, you want to eat the healthiest animal products that you can afford. That's number one. We're human beings, we're animals too, right? In the sense that we hold all of our toxins in our fat. So if we're eating a bunch of different animals that aren't fed the right things, that are pumped up with a bunch of antibiotics because they're sick animals, if they're pumped up with a bunch of steroids, we end up eating that animal and we end up consuming all of its toxins. So we want to make sure the animals that we eat are as clean and high quality as possible. And if you do that, it's going to have a huge positive impact on your muscle, on your skeletal tissue, on your soft tissue, on your brain, on your energy levels, all of it. And then once we start going past animal products, we want to be eating what I just call whole foods. The way that, not whole foods, the restaurant or the grocery store, but whole, real foods that are exactly how God made them, how God intended them. It's things that grow from the ground. These are things that we can pick off of trees. These are things that when we look at it, it hasn't been super heavily processed and turned into something else. So these are going to be your organic, if you can afford them, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, grains, legumes, like all of those things can have a place in life. But now what we need to understand is why I call it biological fueling, because you are a bio individual, meaning your biology is very specific for you. You have to learn and understand what foods work best for you. Might not be the best foods that work for me, might not be the best foods that work for the person next to me. And that's why with my clients who I work with, we focus on getting blood work done. Because when we get blood work done, we can see what's going under the hood and we can understand what's going to work really well for them. And another aspect of it too, depending on where your family is from, where your lineage, your heritage is from, what country your people are from, you're going to have different foods that are going to work really well for you that might not work well for another person. I remember being in a conference back in like 2016, 2017, and this is when like paleo diet was like really at its highest. And one of the tenets in a paleo diet, or even this is also when keto started getting really popular, but one of the tenets in both of these diets is that you don't really eat any grains. You definitely don't eat any rice, and you're really focused on a really high fat, high protein type of diet. And one of the women that I met there, she was an Asian lady, and she was talking about how she was, she's really into her health. She wanted to hack her health. She was doing what all the different, influencers and people who are big into the paleo and keto community were saying, and a lot of these different speakers who were at this event. And she was trying to eat this way, where she was cutting out all rice. And she was trying to eat a lot more high protein, high fat. And she felt terrible. And she had no idea why. But as we really sat down and we started talking through it, it was understanding that her heritage, where she comes from, they eat a lot of rice and fish. That's the main things, right? Also chicken, pork, and some beef. But rice is a huge part. Higher carbohydrates is a huge part of how her people eat. And she tried to throw all that out and just add a bunch of, extra fat into the diet. And it just didn't work for her, even though all the influencers were saying that that's what she should be doing. So that's why we have to understand there's a lot of nuance when it comes to our nutrition and how we eat. But when I talk about biological fueling, it's understanding the huge principle is, number one, just getting the cleanest, highest quality food that you can afford. And within that, you are staying away from the ultra processed foods. And I get it as a high performer, as someone who's super busy with work responsibilities and home responsibilities. One of the first things that gets sacrificed is food. When we really try to step into convenience. But the problem is this level of convenience is actually hurting your performance. I want you, next time you eat something that is probably not the best thing for you, whether it's pizza, Chick-fil-A, fast food, whatever it is, notice how your body feels after you eat it. Because your body, if you can listen to it, it's always talking to you. It's always communicating. And what happens is a lot of times when you eat food that's not good for you, that's when you're going to notice you get bloated. That's when you're going to notice that you get gassy. Maybe your skin gets itchy. Maybe you start to break out a little bit and you get a couple of pimples that pop up. This is your body talking to you. And a more subtle way it does it is through getting you tired. If you're eating a bunch of dead food and now your body has to try to reinsert life into that food through the digestive process, then what ends up happening is you get tired. You're using up a lot of your life force. So that's a way to understand that your food is so important. And as a high performer, you're eating every day. So if you simply didn't do anything else and you took the current meals that you have, say you only eat breakfast and dinner and you're always skipping lunch because you're so busy. If you focused on eating simply real food, breakfast and dinner, and you replaced the fast food, the ultra enriched white flour, the stuff that's fried, all the pastries and the desserts and the donuts and the cakes, all of it. and ate quality meat, quality vegetables, quality fruit, quality grains, whichever ones you want, and you focus on drinking a lot of water, I guarantee you your energy would be so much better. But again, it takes this level of awareness and understanding where you're at. And I do have resources on single ingredient eating, is what I call it. That's eating real food. And if you want that information, just shoot me a DM on Instagram at Alvey Thompson, and I will send you my single ingredient eating list that you can just use as a shopping list when you go out and buy food. And it'll really break down the best quality proteins and then what to stay away from. The best quality fruits and vegetables, what to stay away from for all of the different foods that are out there. And I also have a little video recorded that I'll send you, no problem. Just let me know that you want it. But the food is the lowest hanging fruit. You eat every day anyways. So if you focus on swapping that out and changing your food, we're not even talking about optimizing it, just switching out the stuff that's ineffective for you and replace it with real food, you're going to feel a huge difference in how you feel, but also you are going to drop unnecessary weight just through all the inflammation that you have in your body by doing this. So if you want that, let me know. But that's the second pillar, biological fueling. The third pillar is called the athletic advantage. And this is how I look at training. So earlier in my career, before I was coaching on body, mind, spirit, all of it, the full 360 lifestyle of the whole thing, I was really focused on sports performance. I trained athletes from the youth level all the way to professional athletes. And the way that you train an athlete, it's very specific. They have specific seasons that they have to be ready for. The way you train in season is very different from how you train in the off season. How you train for a specific sport might be a little bit different, especially as you start getting to the higher levels. But it's understanding that every time you train and how you train should have an intention behind it. It should matter. And for most of the people that I work with today, there's specific things that you want to think about within the athletic advantage. The first part I want you to think about is as it pertains to resistance training, weight training. It's so important. There's numerous studies out there that show that your training is so important for you to keep your muscle mass. Muscle mass is one of these things that the longer we keep it, the healthier we are. The more that we train with weights, the stronger our bone density is. And that's going to help fight against osteoporosis, which is when your bones become brittle as you age. And we need to have strong bones as we age so that we can continue to be active, so we can get down on the floor with our future grandkids. That if we like to golf, we can continue to golf into that older age. Or if you like to travel, you can still hike around and be active. So we need to understand how important the training is. Another part of training that's so important is our cardiovascular health. With the athletic advantage, we talk about conditioning in a very specific way where the foundation of it is our zone 2 cardio. You can also think about it as your aerobic output. It's basically the type of cardio and conditioning that you do to keep your heart healthy. And whether you are a man or a woman, you need to have a healthy heart as you're aging. And if you think about all of the stress that you have from work, that has a huge impact, not just mentally, but on our heart and on our physical body as well. So knowing how to train in such a way that, number one, it has to match your schedule. What I see out there too much with programs that people are trying to subscribe to is that, number one, the programs you're trying to subscribe to don't fit your actual schedule. You need everything that you're doing within your system, within your synergistic method to fit your schedule. So if you're trying to subscribe to a training program that tells you you need to work out 5 days a week for at least an hour and a half each time, that means you need to have 7.5 hours every week just for training. But what if you don't have that? Well, then you do that program and you end up, quote unquote, failing, not because you failed, but because that training program is not appropriate for you in your life. You want to start thinking about your training program based off of what's your floor. That's how I start with all of my clients. What's the minimum amount of time you have in your busiest week? For some people, it might be 2 hours. So great. We're going to maximize that 2 hours and find the right combination of strength training and cardiovascular training to ensure that you're able to get the biggest bang for your buck based on the time that you have. And understand there's different seasons of your life, just like how athletes have different seasons. You might find yourself where you're in a quarter where the quarter is extremely busy. And because of how busy it is, you might only have those 2 hours. But the next quarter, maybe you have 3.5 hours to dedicate. So it's understanding that your training program should adapt based off of the true time you can give it. Now, here's what I'm not saying. You can't just say that you are so busy that you have zero time, because it's not true. We can truly make time for what matters to us. But if we're putting our health to the side, and that's always the first thing that we're willing to sacrifice, well, then of course, it's going to be easy to not make time for it. But understand, when you are training well, when you are eating well, and when you're doing those things together, you're going to increase your capacity, meaning you're going to have more bandwidth, more energy to pour into your work, more bandwidth, more energy to pour into your family. And once you have that increased capacity, that allows you to do more. But understand, the way that we increase this capacity is by making time for these things. So I want you to think right now, how much time do you have in the busiest of weeks to make for your training? And now there's ways that we can incorporate these things together. Say you're dedicating yourself to eating better. Well, after you have a good meal at dinner, why not combine a nice evening walk, a post-dinner walk, which is going to help with digestion, and invite your family to come walk with you? And now before you know it, you're getting extra steps in. You're having some quality time with your family. You're having better digestion happen. And it can all happen in a 15-minute block. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing mentality where your movement has to either be 90 minutes in the gym or nothing at all. It could be as simple as in the morning when you wake up, after you have some water and you hydrate, you say, hey, I'm going to take 15 minutes, or even you might say 10 minutes. I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to get some body weight squats in. I'm going to get some push-ups in, and I'm going to do a 30-second plank. If you do 10 push-ups, 10 squats, a 30-second plank, and you give yourself 10 minutes to do it, you can get 3, 4, 5 rounds in depending on where your health is right now. And if you can combine that over the span of a week, well, before you know it, you just got an hour of exercise in that you weren't getting before. And guess what? You're going to have better energy. You're going to feel better. And now that's like the minimum, a very small way of doing it. We can obviously grow and do much more than that. But there might be times when you're that busy. I have lawyer clients that I work with where they're partners at their firm. They have real tight deadlines. They have, $1 million, sometimes multi-million dollar things that need to get done for their clients. And as a result, they choose to put that first and make sure they put all of their energy and time into it. And even those clients of mine find small gaps to get different types of workouts in throughout the week. So I bring that up just to say that it can happen. It is possible. But it comes with that dynamic identity that I talked about earlier, where you have to look at health as a priority. You got to see yourself as someone who is healthy and therefore shows up for their health no matter how busy things are. And the last pillar that I want to talk about, and honestly, this is the most important pillar right after the dynamic identity when it pertains to high performers who are sacrificing their health for their career success. And this fourth pillar is what I call the regeneration protocol. You have to learn how to properly recover. When I talk about the regeneration protocol, the 3 main components of it are, number 1, your sleep. Sleep is so important. You might have heard the whole idea of you can't outwork a bad diet, right? Well, let me take it one step forward. You can't out-eat poor sleep. You have to get enough sleep. Doesn't matter how great your diet is. It doesn't matter how much you're training and exercising. If you're not getting enough sleep in, you are leaving so much meat on the bone. You are leaving so many gains behind, because the whole reason behind exercise is that you break down the muscle, and then you use your nutrition and you use your sleep, your recovery, to help that muscle grow back stronger, bigger, more dense. But if the recovery's not there, you're literally just breaking down your body. And this is a problem I see with a lot of the high performers who I've worked with, where we actually had to slow down in order to speed up. I have a client that I'm working with right now, amazing man. It was literally voted principal of the year for the entire state of Michigan. And this guy, we talked back and forth for maybe, gosh, I don't even know, maybe like 6-7 months before actually him deciding to work together with me. And he was the type of person at the gym that we both go to where he would sacrifice his sleep in order to make it to the 5:30 a.m. classes. And I had to tell him, one of the first things that we did when we started working together, I told him, brother, the 5:30 a.m. classes, they're not going to work for you, especially not right now. He was getting maybe 5.5, maybe 6 hours of sleep. And it's like, no, we need to focus on your sleep first. So what did we do? We had him, yes, go to bed earlier, which is a huge part of having good sleep. But then we also let him sleep in and then have a morning routine that didn't include trying to rush and go to the gym and then feel rushed the rest of the day, already adding stress to start his day. And instead, we're using that time to start a good morning, plan his day, have his time for prayer and devotional, get a good breakfast in. And what ended up happening? We are 13 weeks into his program. This week is wrapping up week 13. And he's already down 17 pounds. And this is someone who's already in like good shape. Like he wasn't extra obese and the 17 pounds just melted away. This is someone who went from a pretty a stocky, solid 220 to now being around 203. And not only does he look better, he feels better. And he's going to the gym in the evening now and he's stronger than he's been. And all these little nagging pains that he's had in his elbow has pretty much gone away. Why? Because he's focused on his recovery now. He's doing the entire synergistic method. We had to start with his identity and how he sees himself. We completely transformed his nutrition where he got his blood work done and now he knew how to eat for himself and replaced a lot of the processed quick foods, all of that for real food. He's training properly and now he's recovering and making that a huge priority. And hence he got a bunch of results. And we still have a bunch of time that we're working together, just really refining this process and helping him become the man that God designed him to be. He's a follower of Christ just like me, so we can bond in that type of way and go deep in that type of way. And he sees himself in that type of identity. But I bring all this up to help you realize that this is also possible for you. The synergistic method is literally built for these busy executives, built for these busy lawyers, the busy business owners, the busy founders, the busy leaders, people who have a ton of stuff on their plate. And that's you. You are that person. And I'm telling you that when you are able to, number one, switch your identity as someone who at least realizes that health can be your secret weapon in having even more success in your business, having even more success in your career, and then now coming home after a hard, strenuous day of work and still have energy for your kids, for your wife, for your husband, for your friends, for your hobbies. It's not, oh, I'm taking away from my career so I can have health. No, it's you're having and deciding to jump into great health in order to make all these parts of your life better. It's not a pipe dream by any means. It's extremely possible, and I've done it with dozens of people. But it requires the synergistic method. It requires having the dynamic identity. It requires utilizing biological fueling. It requires utilizing the athletic advantage to make sure you're training properly, the right amount and at the right time that fits your life. And finally, the regeneration protocol, making sure you're sleeping well, making sure you're taking time to maybe just go for a walk outside, to be in nature, to breathe fresh air. If you're somebody who is of faith, maybe for you it's praying, taking that time with God. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it is journaling, reflecting, introspecting. All of these bring a lot of recovery to the body. And sometimes if you're that type of person too, you're that weekend warrior executive type, understand that if you are grinding at work and then you're grinding a super strenuous workout, but you're not recovering as hard as you're training, you are literally just beating yourself up and setting yourself up for injury in the future. Maybe you've already experienced that. Maybe you know people who experience that. I know I've seen it a ton in my line of work, but understand that recovery is huge. And that's what's going to allow you to continue to perform at a high level consistently for the long run, and to age well, to have longevity, to make sure that you can do the things that you want to do for a long time, not just for right now. Because it takes having that long-term mentality to truly invest in your health. And when I say invest, it's not just your money, but also investing time into it. Because if you're not willing to put the time into it now, you're not going to have the time later to enjoy the life that you truly desire to have. So I appreciate your time, appreciate you listening and checking into the Synergistic Method. Like I said, if you want those resources on single ingredient eating, just shoot me a DM at Instagram at Alvey Thompson. Happy to give it to you. And I want you to take time to just reflect and see, are you taking intentional time to recover, to train properly, to eat in a way that works well for you, and ultimately checking in on how do you identify and look at yourself? Because all of that is going to dictate how much success you have with your health. And in the next podcast episode, I'm going to talk about why leaders have such a hard time being consistent in their health and how you can apply principles from the Synergistic Method to bring consistency to your health, to your relationships, and still crush it at work. Appreciate your time. Thank you for checking out the Synergistic Edge, and let's continue to get after it. Be dynamic, my friend. You can too.